Hi, this is Matthew Daughter, curator here at the Daughter Library of Ornithology, also known as the DLO, and I'm also the executive director of Santa Clara Valley Audubon Society. So there you go. We're gonna take some questions from Facebook and emailed questions in about birds. We're all kind of stuck in our homes right now, and the questions are popping up all over the place. So I just thought I'd start off and take three questions that came in this week. There's one from Dale in Campbell who said, I have nesting pair of screech owls I've been watching, trying to find out where the male sleeps, rests during the day. Does he share the nest with the female or what? So I turned to all my books here and resources online and personal experience and just tried to answer his question. So I'll tell you a few things about Western screech owl. First, it's a common small owl in Santa Clara County. It particularly likes oak woodland. And we have a pair of Western screech owls at McClellan Ranch that occasionally we get to see, and we're hoping eventually they will have young. So we'll have more screech owls right outside my office. Anyway, there are several books that I like to look at when I'm researching an answer to a question. I always go to Grinnell and Miller first of all, just to find out what the range of the breeding birds are in the state. And just looking in here for a second, you see this map of California with different shaded areas. Those shaded areas represent subspecies of Western screech owl. Not that they look particularly different, but genetically they're different enough that they've been placed into these little regional groups. So we have one group here in the Bay Area, and let me see, I think the subspecies name is Benderii. So anyway, there's that. So this is a really good book for reference. It was published in 1944 by Joseph Grinnell and Alden Miller, and you can find copies of this online, in fact. And we have a copy at the library at McClellan Ranch, so you can look at that. Another book that I like very much is North American Owls, Biology and Natural History. It just has a lot of life history background information on our owls, including the Western screech owl. But the book that I found most helpful with this question was A Field Guide to Owls of California and the West. So this is part of the California Natural History Guide series. It's excellent. And it answered Dale's question pretty much right away. Now, I did look at some other resources like Birds of North America Online by Cornell, which is now called birdsoftheworld.org. They merged with Handbook of Birds of the World, so it's a huge database. Fabulous information, lots of images and graphs and charts and resources. So that was helpful also. But this one I found particularly nice because it is so local to California and our Bay Area. So it's said that during the breeding season, the males roost near its nest, reducing distance from the nest throughout the nesting period. He is joined by the female in the last weeks of the nesting period when the position of their roosts opposite the cavity entrance to give protection from crows and jays and other diurnal predators. So what that says to me is that the male is nearby, but he's not in the nest with the female. She's probably incubating the eggs or getting ready to lay the eggs. But the male is keeping his distance for a little while. Could be several dozen meters away or so, but he will gradually reduce that distance and join the female on either side of the nest cavity when the chicks are hatched, and then protect them from intruders. Now, the male does feed the female during the nesting period, during the time she's incubating, but he'll move away from the nest cavity after bringing her food. And apparently, when the chicks are hatched, she may venture out on her own and get food. But for the time being, the male is often bringing her food. So, anyway, that sounds like a pretty good answer, and I hope Dale was satisfied with that. And anyway, so let me look on what we've got on other questions here. There was one from Eve about our red-winged blackbirds. That there, it's BirdGuy again. Costume change. I left out a couple things that I wanted to make sure I covered here. I mentioned Birds of North America Online, aka birdsoftheworld.org from Cornell. And one of the things I particularly like about that database is these wonderful circular charts. Let's see, it's going to be very hard to, whoa. Well, there we go. These wonderful circular charts. And what these lines around this circle represents an entire year of a bird's life cycle. And the inside circle, the pale blue, contains different information from the medium blue or the darker blue. So as you go around the clock, January being at the very top, February, March, April, etc. The first lines you encounter are nesting. So it says that the nesting begins in March, and but the bulk of the nesting occurs end of March, beginning of April. Now, going around the circle, you continue clockwise around the circle. So here's the breeding area here, and down here is a circle, a layer indicating migration, or juvenile dispersal, I guess is what they're calling it here. And then the inner circle represents the molt schedule of the species. So I apologize for the difficulty in showing this, but these circular graphs, these life cycle charts, are enormously helpful when you're trying to figure out what's happening with the species right now, this month. Now, many of them are going to be breeding, but it's particularly interesting when you're talking about migration, the occurrence of migration. So when it comes to shorebirds and passerines, I really love looking at these circular graphics from birdsoftheworld.org. And another thing I forgot to point out is this fabulous resource that we have, the Breeding Bird Atlas of Santa Clara County, written by Bill Bousman, but many contributors assembled the data. And the Breeding Bird Atlas has interesting things about our birds, all of our species. Not only the schedule of their breeding cycle, but where they have been shown to breed or confirmed to breed in our county, Santa Clara County. But there's also just a wealth of information about the bird's lifestyle, their preferred habitats, their seasonal movements, the subspecies that we have in our area. So this wonderful book, this huge, big book, took years to produce, and we offer it free for members. And we have it at the Nature Shop in our headquarters at McClellan Ranch in Cupertino. So if you'd like to get one of these, become a member and you'll get one for free. So there you go. Now, let me see. Hang on here. Hi there, it's BirdGuy again. Thought I'd change my costume. There's only one of these hats in existence. It's the winter plumaged avocet. So let's see. I like it. It says, I bird, I vote on the side, which is kind of fun. And I've got the new Birdathon t-shirt. Actually, it's not a Birdathon shirt. It's the Audubon shirt for this year, 2020. And it says, birding is good for the blues. So these are available right away if you're pledging for the Birdathon. we've got these for $100 and greater donors. So they come in 3 colors. Anyway, there's another question that came in this week from Eve. And she says, I'm on my bike right now and noticed that one blackbird is the California bicolored and the other one has dull yellow band. Is that normal blackbird or a hybrid or what? So, yeah, if you're not familiar with the bicolored form, it's the blackbird that we get most often in Santa Clara County. It's right here. You could see this one right here does not show the yellow margin. That yellow margin is the median coverts of the wing. So this is the form we get in most of the country. In California, we have a lot of these bicolored birds. And so I did a little bit of research to find out when and where we get the yellow margined ones. Let's call them visitors. Maybe that's not the best word, but they're not the bicolored ones. They're not tricolored either. That's a different species altogether. But never mind. These are the yellow and black and red birds. So according to Cornell Labs of Birds of the World, there are 7 subspecies of red-winged blackbird in California, and 20 spread across the full range. So within our state, the bicolored form of the red-winged blackbird is found commonly in the Central Valley and the Bay Area. So that's that we get the bicolored most often. So the question was raised about a red-winged blackbird that was found locally that showed yellowish median coverts, much like that of the majority of the continent. In California, we are used to seeing the bicolored form, and these bicolored forms consist of 3 different subspecies. Maiardorum, the local birds, and Californicus, the Central Valley birds, and Aciculatus, upper Kern River drainage. I've seen those before. The red and yellow ones are less commonly found here. So I took a look at this, of course, the Breeding Bird Atlas, to find out if Bill had anything to say about that. And he said that in Santa Clara County, Maiardorum is the widespread and abundant resident. In winter, over other subspecies with yellowish edges on the wing are sometimes found in mixed in with our flocks. So it seems likely that the birds showing yellowish median coverts are just visiting from elsewhere as opposed to being hybrids or intergrades with other populations of redwings. These birds possibly originate from areas to the north and east of the Central Valley. Most likely they will leave our local flocks and return to their breeding areas elsewhere in the state. But during the breeding season, we should see pretty much only the bicolored form locally. Well, let's hope that answers Eve's question. So I'm guessing that one with the yellow margins will probably leave soon and possibly not reappear until next winter. Oh, excuse me. I was just looking at a hooded oriole in the top of a cedar across the driveway. It's kind of a strange place for it. But, this is the time for orange and bright yellow birds. And hooded orioles are just about my favorite. In fact, I have a hooded oriole hat. I should have put that on. But anyway, we had an orange bird a couple days ago in our backyard. And it was raining and awful and gray and dismal. So this beautiful flaming orange bird showed up in the persimmon tree in our backyard. And I knew right away it was a Selasphorus hummingbird. And Cricket and I have had Allen's hummingbirds here many times. And but we've never had a Rufous hummingbird. So I thought maybe this one might be a Rufous. I just had to make sure. But, being stuck inside, I thought, okay, it seems to like the back persimmon tree. Why don't I set up the telescope and we'll see if we can get a good look at it, because it seemed to go back to the same branch and shake off the raindrops pretty often during the day. So anyway, that's the question. This has been people have been asking about Selasphus hummingbirds for a little while because they seem to be all over the place now, and it's always hard to tell Allens from Rufous because they're both beautiful flaming orange. At least the males. The females are less orange, but they still have this beautiful tangerine color on their sides and in the tail. Now, I'm of the mind that the females really are just impossible to identify in the field unless you see one breeding. If you see one nesting, you can be certain it's an Allen's because the Rufous don't nest here at all. The Rufous nest up in the mountains. But Allens do nest here, particularly along the coast in the fog belt. Like a mile or two from the coast. That's probably where their favorite place is. But we do have Allens nesting here too, in Santa Clara County. Anyway, so the problem was, how do we know whether this is a Rufous or an Allen's hummingbird? The idea that the Rufous have got orange on the back, that's pretty standard thought. You look in your field guide and you see that, let me see, the Allen's down here has a lot of green on the back, and the Rufous up here has almost no green on the back, pretty much none. And I thought, well, sure, that's pretty great. But hang on. I was looking for my Sibley guide. Sibley did this amazing thing where he said that up to 10% of Rufous hummingbirds have got all greenbacks. So I was thinking, what are you doing to us, David? Don't do that. Give us something that we can hang on to. So the only thing that you can really hang on to, I think, is the tail. So I took a picture of the Selasphus hummingbird in our backyard with my telescope, with my cell phone. And this is the picture that I was able to get. So now you see how this tail feather right here has got this curious notch in it. That notch indicates that it's a Rufous hummingbird because the Allen's doesn't have that. So these two feathers here and here are R1, left and right. This is R2. R stands for rectrix. The rectrices are what make up the tail. And in hummingbirds, there are 10 of them. So if you count from the center, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So a careful look at the tail. So I don't think I should be allowed to touch computers. Something happened there. It cut off in the middle of my scintillating explanation. So I'm going to start all over again. No, really. So the point is that the Selasphus hummer in our backyard is a Rufous hummingbird. But what's kind of interesting about those pair of species, the Selasphus hummer species, Allen's and Rufous, is that Allen's is notoriously early arrival. So they also tend to really prefer the foggy coastal areas. That's not to say we don't have them here. We do. But the Allens, sometimes they arrive as early as January, and they're often gone by the end of August. Rufous don't usually even arrive until late February or March. So a lot of these new Selasphus that we're seeing come in through our area are probably Rufous. Now keep in mind that they don't breed here. So if you see a Selasphus hummingbird doing a courtship display, that's the kind of, it's got to be Allen's, because the Rufous don't start their dance until they get to the breeding grounds in the Sierra. So the other interesting thing about Selasphus hummers is that the Rufous hummingbirds, they take a different route when they go north as when they come south. This is called circular migration. So they migrate among the lowland areas, the coastal areas, and I mean coast broadly, they migrate north along the coastal areas because in the Sierra it's still cold. There aren't many flowers. There's not much there to support them, so they take the route up north along the coast where things are in bloom, lots of flowering eucalyptus and other wildflowers that attract and feed the Rufous hummingbirds as they travel north. When they reach the breeding grounds in the Sierra, in the mountains, they'll begin dancing pretty much immediately. Well, immediately after they see the females, which arrive slightly later. And then when they're done with the nesting season, they will migrate south through the mountains. So they'll follow the flowers south in the mountains all the way back down to their wintering ground in Mexico. So again, that does not to say that we don't see them in the fall. We just see many fewer of them, and the Allens are often gone by that point. So another thing that I should point out is that if you look at our checklist, which was compiled by Bill Bowson again for Santa Clara County, down here at the bottom you see Rufous and Allen's hummingbirds right next to each other. So you can see that the Rufous hummingbird migrates through in the spring and again perhaps a little bit in the fall, but the bulk of their appearance in our area is in the spring. And you'll see that they disappear because this is where they're breeding elsewhere. This is where they're not here so much. Now the Allens, on the other hand, arrives earlier and breeds and remains the entire time, and then trails off in fall. So this is a pretty wonderful tool just to kind of provide some context for the birds. There's a smaller version of this checklist, which we've got at the nature shop at McClellan Ranch. This is available online. And if you're using eBird, you have another way of checking the status of a bird by going to bar charts in a species. So there you go. I think that might be all of all of the questions. So I think I might be done for today. But I'm glad you joined us, or joined us, me and my hats. And we'll see you next week, maybe for a few more questions. And in the meantime, I'm going to go look for that Salacious hummingbird some more. Take care, everybody. Bye. I found it.